Here's what some people are saying about the Projection Booth podcast.
The Projection Booth is single-handedly the greatest film podcast you could ever listen to or could possibly want.
Top notch. 5 stars. This has quickly become one of my favorite film-related podcasts. Always interesting.
A completely unpretentious yet fully comprehensive look at films from all genres.
The Projection Booth podcast, with new episodes available every week at projectionboothpodcast.com.
Mouth of Dorkness podcast. Here are Brad, Brian, and Darren.
Welcome to another edition of the It Modcast podcast. With me is Brian Young, the Turtle Dork.
Hey, everybody.
And also joining us is Brad Gullickson, Mouth Dork.
Anybody got a big bowl of gummy bears?
Yep, and I'm your host, Darren Smith, the Disco Dork. And welcome to the It Modcast podcast REVIEWcast for Death Note.
Is that from Death Note?
No, but L, he likes all that candy. Give me some of them Reese's.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I do remember him grabbing something out of a bowl.
Some Smarties. I need my sugar.
Saw some candy wrappers, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that was part of his character.
That was part of his character. He likes sweets.
So Netflix has just recently released Death Note, directed by Adam Wingard, the director of
The Guest.
Yep.
You're Next.
Yep.
Blair Witch.
The upcoming Godzilla vs. Kong.
So an It Mod favorite, I would say it's safe to say, right?
Yes, 2 of those movies are great.
Yes.
And one has yet to be released.
And one that is released is garbage. Oh, wait. So
Blair
Netflix,
Witch, I agree.
Showing our hand that quick.
I love Blair Witch. Blair Witch was really good.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was.
No.
It was better than this. Wait.
No.
What?
No.
You are nuts. Let's talk. Now I want to talk about Death Note. All right. You've baited me.
I have. I baited you into this review. You were like, we don't even need to talk about it. I was like, we got to do a whole episode.
You're very good at that. You're a master at baiting.
This is too... You're fucking right, I am. Look how hairy these palms are.
Whoa.
All right. So look, Death Note came out, right? So it's another live adaptation of a very popular manga and also anime. The anime came out, I want to say, in 2006. There has been, I think, a sequel series. If there has been, I haven't seen it. There's also been 2 previous live-action adaptations.
Have either of you read the manga?
No, I'm not familiar with. I mean, I'm familiar with Death Note, but never read or done all that stuff.
Have you seen the manga? Have you read the manga?
I've not read the manga, but I have seen the original, the anime series.
How are they?
I like it. We're going to talk about it in reference to my expectations and my enjoyment of this film. So the story of Death Note, whether it be the manga, the anime, or this film, again, there are 2 Japanese produced and live action films as well, part 1 and a part 2. And so they came out, I want to say maybe 3 to 5 years ago. But this is the first U.S. produced, directed, and released adaptation of the property, and this one takes place in Seattle, Washington, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So the idea behind Death Note, whether it be this adaptation, the 2 Japanese adaptations of the anime or the manga, is that there is a book, and where there are these death gods, and the death gods have a book, the titular Death Note, and in this book, if one were to write the name of someone in the book, that person would die. You could kill that person. But the rules are you have to have a visual image of the person, and you have to write their name. You write their name and how they die, and they'll die in that fashion. If you don't write how they die, so if I just wrote Brian Young and have a picture of his face in my mind and just leave it at that, he'll have a heart attack. If you don't specify the type of death, they just have a heart attack.
Oh.
If you do specify the type of death, then I could just do some Final Destination shit to you.
But what I thought was interesting about it was, it starts off with, Brian Young decapitated, and then a Final Destination Rube Goldberg-like scenario will happen in which Brian Young will be decapitated.
Why is my name being used?
You missed out on the Week of Dork, so yours is the first name of the Death Note, okay?
Yeah.
But as the film progressed, you can start to do things like Brian Young will confess his love to me on this date, and he'll go out and buy a stack of comic books for me. He'll steal the entire quantity of the Starbucks across the street. He'll bring me all the coffee, all of the Danishes, all the cheesecakes, and then he'll walk into traffic. And then all that stuff will happen
within 48 hours.
Right. All that stuff will happen before he walks into traffic.
Yeah. Which is interesting. I thought the movie kind of started. I mean, it starts off quick. And they had a panel at Comic-Con, and they showed a scene, and the scene they actually showed was the scene that happened probably within the first 7 minutes of the film when he first sees Ryuk, the Death God, in that classroom in detention, and they're talking about the book, and he writes the dude's name, and then the scene cut in Hall H. The scene cut when he said, "Well, let's watch," and then it cuts, and everybody's like, "Ooh!" But then, like in the movie, we see he's decapitated by the ladder and whatnot,
which is awesome.
Yeah, but that scene when I saw it in Hall H kind of turned me off to the film because I didn't like Nate Wolff and his acting in that particular scene, and I was looking forward to this film, but then I was in Hall H and I saw the way the scene was being played and his portrayal of the character and how he was responding. It just
let's just back up just a little bit. When he's introduced in the film, he's like the moody loser kid.
Yeah,
he's observing in slow motion his classmates,
and he's basically cheating for classmates, basically selling off answers to tests for money and stuff like that.
And you know the Death Note book falls from the sky,
which it does in the anime as well.
And he picks it up, and you know he has an encounter with the local bully, as well as the hot cheerleader.
Yeah,
and he's punched in the face, and he blacks out. And when he wakes up, teacher has discovered the tests or the quizzes that he's been answering for a little side cash, his side hustle. He goes to detention because the principal's a dick. Doesn't want to talk about the fact that he's got a big bloody eye. And at what point does he go to that classroom where he meets Ryuk?
It's at that point because it happens extremely early.
So is he already in detention and then he goes off to another classroom? I missed something. Like I got up to get a drink of water and he's like re-entering into this classroom that's all the lights are off, and that
was when he was in detention because he was in that room by himself.
Okay, so he was already in detention?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was in that room by himself.
I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And then he goes to he hears something.
Yeah, like something falls in the back, like these marbles come out.
So here's the problem with watching a movie for the first time on Netflix in your apartment, and you're making dinner. You know, you're like getting up to go to the kitchen,
or you're dozing off,
and you're snacking on things. You're dozing off, and because this film moves so quickly, I just was not expecting the introduction of Ryuk to happen like that.
It was literally like at the 7-minute mark. I timed it.
And what I appreciated about it was once Ryuk is introduced, he's pretty much just like out in the open, and it's Willem Dafoe voice as is. There's no real distortion to his vocality,
which is not needed in this case. Actually.
Yeah, I thought it was really good.
Well, you know, I agree, but it also took me a little time to adjust because it's so Willem Dafoe. It's the Green Goblin. It's that fish from Finding Nemo. You know, his voice is so absolutely distinctive. It's hard to think of the character of Ryuk
when you're
beyond Willem Dafoe, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, he peeks around a shelving unit, and that's when Ryuk rises. And up until this point, Nat Wolff has been a moody goth kid, right? But when he sees Ryuk, it's a comical scream,
very comical,
and it's not just like one comical scream; it's prolonged fright.
Yeah.
And it's really weird.
It's very weird because, he runs to the door shuts, then he's like knocking on the door, yelling, then he goes under the table and he's still yelling and squealing.
It's like
It's
incredibly
cartoonish.
Yes.
It's extremely cartoonish. And like I said, watching that in Hall H, I was just like, ugh.
Like, that's not how you want to introduce the demon, right?
No, not
Because you're
at all.
so distracted, one, by once he talks Willem Dafoe's voice, but also whatever the hell Nat Wolf's doing.
Yeah, I thought that was just for me, not seeing the film beforehand, like, again, Hall H Comic-Con, I just thought that was a terrible scene to show to that crowd.
I just would like to talk to Adam Wingard about why.
Yeah, because it seems tonally off from what they were actually trying to go for in the film.
But then I was like, okay, I had to readjust what kind of movie I was watching to match the tone that they were presenting me. So I said, okay, because the moment after that, that's when he puts the first name into the Death Note. It's that bully kid.
Yeah.
He says decapitated. And we watch this Final Destination sequence, and it's a ton of fun.
It's really
that
good, really
that
good.
death, because how does it occur? Something...
Well, you see the kids walking across the street with the basketball, and there's another lady that they're about to cross that has groceries. The grocery bag tears and breaks, and like some cans fall out. The one kid slips on the can. The basketball like bounces into the street. It makes one car swerve, which runs into another truck that has ladders on it. And then the ladders, like when he halts on the brakes, the ladders like fly out, and it's a
severs
sequence,
his head.
and it's a sequence of events. It's not just one thing that happens.
And it's not like decapitated at the neck.
No.
It's like
No,
in
no.
the middle of his
basically
face.
just
From
like-
the mouth. Yeah, from the mouth up.
It almost explodes his head, really.
And I loved that death.
I thought it was
You
pretty
know,
cool.
I loved it.
So taking the cartoonish fear of Nat Wolf in that moment and the Final Destination gore, I said, okay, I'm in for a ride. I'm interested.
Yeah.
Let me eat my dinner and focus on this film. I was weirdly hooked by the combination of Nat Wolf's performance and that murder sequence.
Yeah.
I could never get around Nat Wolf's performance. I mean, outside of that cartoonish reaction to Ryuk that you spoke of.
It's called Ryuk, not Ryuk.
Yes.
Yeah, Ryuk. I could never
Speak American.
even for the rest of the film. I didn't like his performance choice, and that for me was the main thing that took me out of the film. And I was able to try and separate the anime from the live action film, because you got to think this movie is only, I don't even think it's 2 hours.
It's hour and 40 minutes.
Hour and 40 minutes. So they have how things play out in the first 7 minutes of that film, and well, pretty much the whole film is how it plays out, at least in the first 2 and 3 episodes of the anime.
For me, I was incredibly interested in, okay, now we're going to watch this goth teen kid get revenge upon the people who've done him wrong. And there's some backstory about how his mother was killed in a hit and run accident because of this like mobster? Was he a mob?
Yeah, I mean, that's when we get introduced to his father, played by Shea Wiggum, who I thought was actually really good.
And okay, you put Shea Wiggum in anything, and suddenly I'm like, this movie is the best movie playing right now.
Yeah.
I love Shea Wiggum.
He's great in the film.
He's perfect.
I liked him.
He doesn't get enough to do.
Now, I want to say the story, the plot element about the death of his mother at the hands of this mobster, and that being a catalyst for his angst and how he wants to use the Death Note to rid the world of bad people or whatever. That's one of the main departures in the film from a character standpoint, because in the anime, Light's both his mother and his father are present, and his sibling. He has a sister too, so he has a complete family unit at home. But he does still, in the same way that in this film, how Light wants to use this book, with this power, I can kill all the criminals. I can kill all the bad people. But the first criminal I'm going to kill is the guy who killed my mom. So that's understandable. So basically like Batman with the Notebook.
So I thought, okay, well, this is going to be a really fun gore film.
Right.
Very typical horror movie.
Yeah.
But again, it's an hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And suddenly, as he's getting revenge on the bad people around him, and he starts watching the news and finding bad people in the city around him, and then he starts looking globally and going after Kim Jong-un or whoever.
Yeah.
And then it starts to go to this other realm. pretty darn quickly, in which a cult envelops around his attack on the bad people of this planet.
Because he can't come out and say, I'm the one doing this, he decides he's going to create a figure so that the public can know that there's somebody who was responsible. He doesn't want to put his identity out, so he creates the name of this personality.
Him
Kira.
and his now new hot cheerleader girlfriend.
Now,
Margaret.
Kira, the figure Kira in the cult that follows that's also in the anime as well.
Now, in the anime, is Kira an actual god?
No, Kira is. Light says, you know what? I can't come out and say I'm doing this.
So it's still a fiction, a creation.
Right. He wants the people to know that someone's responsible. So he's going to create this fictional character for people to follow.
So it's at this point where the film really loses me because it's moving so quickly, and now we're in a new genre practically.
Yeah,
and the killings, attract the attention of the FBI and global police forces and this super special detective school. And that's when the character of L comes in.
Yeah.
Played by, what's his name from Get Out? Keith
Stanfield. Who he's one of my favorite young actors.
Yeah,
he's also really in he's in that film with Brie Larson, 12
Short-Term 12.
And he's in the new one, Incredible Jessica James, which is good, and Atlanta.
He's in Atlanta.
So I love him.
Yeah.
I've only seen him in Short-Term 12 and Get Out. I think he is great in both of those films. I hate him in this movie.
Same.
And, part of it has to do with the affectation that they give him, with the candy and the sweet tooth, the ski mask that he wears.
But there's a reason for that.
Well, I mean, I understand why, but his performance through that ski mask, and he's so not necessarily one-dimensional, but I mean, to use your word, he's such a cartoon.
He's a character.
There's no reality to his performance at all. And I found him incredibly distracting. And I was so frustrated that we have such an awesome talent being given such a crappy role.
Yeah. It I don't know, like on one hand, Lakeith Stanfield plays the character of L. And he is in this film. He is he's a super sleuth. He went to basically like the Natasha Romanoff school of like detectives.
No, I mean he did. He goes to a version of the Red Room, like a secret orphanage, a detective's orphanage,
right? And so because of this, like if you can make it out of this school, then you would have these great Sherlock Holmes detective skills, almost superhuman. And in that way, his ability to deduce things and his focus is very much like the character L in the anime. But the way he acts and behaves is not like the character in the anime. But another but is, though, he does come off like a character from an anime, in another anime that's not Death Note, that, again, like you said, very cartoonish, but his mannerisms, the
way he holds himself, when he's running, he does this weird thing where he puts his head down like a bull and his whole back is arched.
Yeah.
It's so strange to watch.
How whenever he sits, quote unquote, sits down, I'm doing air quotes, he's squatting in a chair. He'll jump up on a counter or a chair
he's
or whatever.
He's like a gargoyle in seats.
That was how his movements and things like that are how a character would act in another anime. Not Death Note, though, but in an anime. So for me, it was weird that he was doing this anime-like performance to this character, but it wasn't from the anime that this movie is based off of.
And again, Nat Wolff would sometimes fall into a cartoonish performance as well.
Yeah.
Whereas the characters around these two, the girl... what's her name?
Who plays Margaret?
Yeah, Mia. Margaret Qualley. Anyway, her performance is pretty straightforward. Shea Wingham's performance is pretty darn straightforward. Actually, Willem Dafoe's performance as Ryuk is pretty straightforward. That was, honestly, as the film was progressing, I looked forward to him coming into the film
and
returning.
How he had a presence, like you said, he's always hanging out in the background. He'll just be in a scene because only the holder of the Death Note can see the Death God that's tied to that Death Note. In which case, this is Ryuk who's tied to this Death Note. So only Light can see Ryuk. In the anime, it's the same way. So there will be scenes where Light is having dinner with his family, and Ryuk is this in the anime. He's like 8, maybe 9 feet tall.
Like the Slender Man.
Yeah, he's really tall, and he's just hanging out in the back, watching them have dinner. He's
So I loved all that stuff because they try to do a few of those things where he'll be in the background, blurred out a little bit, and he's obviously having a lot of fun being in this scenario.
They don't use him enough in the movie because in the anime he's bored in the realm of the death gods. So he purposefully loses his Death Note, so he has to go retrieve it, and he wants it to be found because once it's found, he has to follow the person that uses it until either they die or they relinquish it to another user. So he's just bored in the death realm. It's just a barren wasteland of death gods who kill people to take on their remaining lives. So if you're 30 years old and you're supposed to live,
I wish I was 30 years old.
If you were supposed to live till you were 60 and you die, the death god gets to keep your remaining 30 years of life. It gets added onto their lifespan. So that's what. Do you hear what I'm saying?
I hear what you're saying.
So that's what the death gods do. But Ryuk is bored in that realm, so he comes to Earth. So in the anime, he's intrigued by humans and their nature. So he's questioning, he's watching them.
And none of that's in the film.
None of it at all.
And somebody who's not familiar with the source material, the impression that I got, because this film is moving at such a rapid pace, and we've gone from what I thought was just going to be a Final Destination revenge film to a cult film to whatever the hell it happens at that Ferris wheel movie, it felt like it needed that there were that they were cramming several volumes of a manga into a 100-minute movie, and that the L character shouldn't show up until Death Note Part 2.
Yeah,
that this entire film should have been building to the religion around Death Note.
Because if we're doing a film version, yes, but the anime, L shows up, I think, in the second episode. So he shows it fairly early, but to what you're saying, that's because we have another 10 or 12 episodes to go to expand on this character and flesh him out along with the main character. But because we have a 100-minute runtime, it is something that you have to decide. We have to cut our losses. Someone has to step out so we can flesh out one of these main storylines. You're right. It should be establishing Light and Ryuk, because they have a bond and they have a very weird relationship in the anime, because Ryuk is not biased. He's not on Light's side. He's not on L's side. He's not trying to protect Light. He's not trying to help L catch him. He's just a arbitrary third party.
There should be a whole film about their relationship.
Exactly.
Why isn't that this movie?
Yeah. It would have been far more interesting. Because it fleshes out, because Ryuk is just as a complex character as Light is in the anime and manga.
There's too much going on in this version of Death Note.
Yeah.
And so much so that when the tension between the relationship of Margaret and Nat Wolf, that when that happens, you're just like, well, I don't care about any of this stuff.
As far as a departure from the source material, or having that happen in this film, I kind of found that interesting. I found her, not that I found it believable, but I found it interesting that that character would end up being a foil, more so than L to Light.
Yeah.
I felt like that should be the third film.
Yeah, I did find that interesting though, when you kind of see that reveal of everything that she's kind of been plotting along, with the FBI agents and everything like that.
But of course, he's been thinking 2 steps ahead of her.
Yeah, exactly, and I like that reveal too when we get to the final part of the climax.
I found the movie incredibly watchable. At no point was I bored. I was certainly rolling my eyes at a few scenes and frustrated at a bunch of it.
Yeah.
But I never wanted to turn it off.
Right.
Put that on the poster. There's your quote. I never wanted to turn it off.
I would say, Brian, if you're actually going to go back and rewatch it,
I really do. I want to see it.
The series is on Netflix, the anime series. Watch it after you give it a rewatch. Not only so you can compare, but if you find Ryuk and or Light or L, someone from the live action film interesting, the series fleshes them out way much more, and I think there's a lot more, especially the initial cat and mouse between L and Light in the film. It's done to greater effect in the anime. Like when he calls him out while he's doing his press conference on TV. Well, that's taken straight from the anime, but it's done in a much more clever way in the anime, and it makes their initial rivalry, the beginnings of their rivalry, much more interesting. But it follows the same type of beat in the anime. Cool.
I do want to mention that I liked the music quite a bit.
Yeah.
I thought that Atticus Ross and Leopold Ross's work on it was strong. I thought the film looked nice at times. At other times it did not, but there were moments where it did look beautiful.
Yeah. I thought the cinematography was really clean.
And, I thought there was a good movie in here somewhere. I'm still a fan of Adam Wingard as a director.
Yeah.
It's just frustrating coming off of what I would call two mini genre masterpieces in Your Next and The Guest, that he hasn't quite found that level of artistry in the mainstream with Blair Witch and Death Note. Here's hoping Godzilla King of the Monsters will turn it around.
He's doing Kong versus Godzilla.
Who's doing Godzilla King of the Monsters?
Brad Doherty from Trick or Treat.
Well, either way.
Yeah, but
here's hoping King Kong versus Godzilla.
Same thing. He's still going into that realm of big budget, and we don't know if he's going to have that type of creative control.
Well, I think the most crippling aspect of Death Note, as far as Wingard is concerned, is the fact that he is adapting a large volume of story into an hour and 40-minute film. Like granted, if it was something that was like a one-off story or a one-shot deal, whatever like that, I wish he took like been okay.
The Lawnmower Man approach to adaptation, where you're just like, okay, I'm going to take this one thing and run off with it.
Yeah, I think any director probably would have had some challenges trying to adapt this type of story.
It's exactly like, quality-wise, I'm not going to say, but it's a similar situation to The Dark Tower. You're adapting a huge body of work.
This is better than The Dark Tower.
So complex.
By a lot.
So complex as far as story goes into a singular feature-length film. It's going to suffer, and I think.
So what about the idea of whitewashing? Do you feel like this falls into the same category as Ghost in the Shell?
I don't feel so, because they talked about this before. This is an American remake of a Japanese anime, so it's set in Seattle. It's supposed to be an American story. It's a remake of a Japanese property, unlike something like Ghost in the Shell.
Why does Nat Wolff pick Kira, the Japanese god, to build his mythology around?
Maybe part of
and then you have some scenes in Tokyo with the strip club and the massacre over there. Is that just like a tip of the hat to the source material?
I think it's just them just kind of wanting to tie it into the source material. But I don't think it's trying. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if it's really trying to.
I think a large part of it has to do with accessibility, I think, or maybe because I think I would have it my way. If you're going to let Adam Wingard do it, firstly do it in a series of films, so you're not rushing everything, but shoot it in Japan, because cast Japanese characters, because just that in and of itself will give it a different feel. There is, especially for Western audiences who aren't familiar with Death Note, you have this cultural layer of mystery on top of this fictionalized mystery that you're creating with the backstory and the mythology of the Death Note. So it gives it a richer and deeper texture. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I'm struggling with it. You know, because I look at like Infernal Affairs to The Departed. I have no problems with The Departed's adaptation. That feels like taking a story, a narrative, and bringing it to the United States.
Yeah.
I would even say The Ring, for the most part, is a solid adaptation and doesn't feel like a whitewashing experience.
Yeah, and that's why I think this movie kind of falls
feels
into.
like that.
But I
to
feel
some
like
degree.
The Grudge does feel a little like whitewashing. The Sarah Michelle Gellar movie.
Oh, yeah.
Because that feels very much like a Japanese story.
Because it
with
takes
this
place
white
over there,
girl
right?
pushed
I think,
in.
yeah, that's what I think. I think it takes. Yeah.
And I felt like with Ryuk and Kira, there was something missing in the adaptation to bringing it to Seattle that did not quite ring true.
I felt the same way watching it when they started to bring in the elements of Kira and that cult. I was just like, well, why are they
Like,
calling back?
would a Seattle kid do this?
Yeah, but
Maybe.
then I was just thinking to myself, well, maybe this is just paying homage to some of the source material by setting something in Japan. That was my only rationale behind it. But if you were making a complete American remake, a la The Departed or The Ring,
set it
all, and just create its own cult, set in the United States.
Right.
But I don't know. I just thought it was just like you say, a tip of the hat. I just thought that's what it was.
I don't know. I think a lot of the issue is also just straight representation, right? Here's just another example.
Yeah, especially nowadays. That's what people are kind of looking for. But I don't know if this is exactly the fight that people want to fight. As far as representation, because I don't know if this falls in the same.
Whereas
category.
Ghost in the Shell was a clear kind of that don't belong. Scarlett Johansson does not belong in that movie.
Yeah, there's definitely an argument there to be made. But
and in actuality, because of the mythology that's built into Death Note, they genuinely could have set it in Seattle. Ryuk could just be, Light could just be, the Light in this film could be named something else. Thomas could just be another person who came upon the Death Note, because it has happened before. You know what I'm saying? So in this film with our Thomas, Ryuk could tell Thomas about Light and his experience with Light and his experience with L and before in the past. You know what I'm saying? So that mythology still could have taken place, but we could just have this one be the next.
It's obvious that Death Note has a extremely rich material to play with.
Right.
And that Adam Wingard had to stuff a whole lot into an hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And he was cheated of potential, with either a series of films or a TV series, or just a 3-hour movie. I don't know. But what we got was, chopped up mini episode.
Yeah, and it's crazy
Super
because
rushed.
And the tragedy in it is also because the way the movie's set up. It's set up. It leaves it open for a sequel, and if you're going to do that, then it goes back to the idea that if you could have fleshed things out in the sequel.
I just, we were talking on our Week in Dork about Terminator 2 and whether or not Sarah Connor deserved her happy ending.
Yeah.
And I felt like Light, similarly, maybe doesn't deserve the ending that he gets in this film. No. That Mia really should take over the narrative at a certain point.
That's how this film set that up. It really felt like that should be the natural progression and ending of this particular film.
So
but it doesn't do that.
When Light's still there at the credits, you're just like, what?
Yeah.
I don't know. But again, I do think it was worth my time. I'm still waiting for the great Netflix movie. Yeah. I haven't been given it yet. We'll see. Martin Scorsese, The Irishman. Fingers crossed.
Get Bright.
I am not forgetting Bright. I see it on the horizon, sir. I see it. I look forward to our fistful of anticipation for the fall, Brian. Yeah. I expect some love for Margot Robbie and... no, she's not in it, is she?
No.
No. I was going to say, I'm watching it now.
Joel Edgerton and Will Smith.
Yeah.
Margot Robbie should be in Bright, though.
As far as a good Netflix, as far as a good Netflix film, check out What Happened to Monday.
What happened to Monday?
I
don't even know what that is.
It's a movie. It's a movie with Noomi Rapace.
Yeah,
so there's this.
She's in Bright.
That's why it made me think of this. So is this dystopian future where kind of like kind of like that law.
Willem Dafoe.
Yes. So watch the movie because I need to discuss it with you, B. There's this dystopian future, which is kind of like an embellished version of that law. And I think it was China when you were only allowed to have like one kid. Mm-hmm. Remember that?
Yeah.
So in this future, you're only allowed to have like one child or something like that. And this woman has 7 daughters. They're all twins. And she plays each one of them. And Willem Dafoe, I guess, helps raise them. And they're each named a day of the week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And on each day of the week, they are allowed to go out of the house on their corresponding day and namesake. So, but they're all supposed to be play the person of, one particular person. So no one knows that this one woman is actually a twin of 6 other siblings.
It's from the writer of Dead Snow 1 and 2 and Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters.
Yes, and you like Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters.
I do.
So it's a Netflix film. I need you to check it out so we can talk about it. And Willem Dafoe is awesome in it. And she's good in it too. And it's an interesting premise. And she gets to play multiple characters. So yeah, that's our review cast for Death Note. Again, I want Brian to check out the anime if you're going to revisit the film. And
why don't you want me to check out the anime?
I got to work you into, because the anime tropes that are in Death Note they won't be as off-putting if you're used to them. There are things in Death Note that, just like how we have, our animation and our, Western animation, we have things that are, you can see in every different type of animation. There are things in Death Note that are, par for the course.
And I struggle with anime.
And I know you struggle with anime, but you're getting to the point where I've been giving you some that are really character focused, and then other that are visually focused, but Death Note kind of falls in between. But again, you've already got a taste of the premise, and if you found the characters interesting in this live action, again, they only get expanded and given more time to be fleshed out in Death Note, especially Ryuk. Like his story is my favorite because they'll go back and forth between the Death Realm and
the film did make me want to take a look at the manga again. Yeah. I tried like a year ago to read it, and then I put it down. The usual.
The interesting thing that they touch on a little bit about the responsibility of that power and the ramifications and how that may or may not play on your conscience as far as being able to, do you have the right to judge? And if you feel like you do, like, how does that affect you? They touch on that a little bit in the movie, but in the series, they do a lot with that.
The closing credits of Death Note have behind the scenes shots of the actors, and I didn't realize that Willem Dafoe was motion capture. And honestly, I was a little surprised by that because I did not see his physicality in the creature we saw within the film.
There's an actual actor.
No. There's a for Ryuk, his physical performance. There's a separate guy, Willem Dafoe only did the voice and the facial motion capture.
Yeah, but even in that, it just felt like a completely CG being.
Yeah. So, but again, like that, Ryuk as a character is so much more complex in the series. So I don't know. Maybe you check it out. It's on Netflix. Just pop an episode in here or there. The first 2 or 3 episodes I think will really be interesting and easy for you to watch because you're going to see immediate parallels to the film. So that'll probably get you through the first 2 or 3 episodes because you're going to be like, that I recognize that. Oh, it's okay. Okay, so they're doing that particular element in this way. Okay, so that might actually get you through the first few. But it's a decent series. All right, so hit us up on social media at ItModcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Let us know what you thought of the movie. If you haven't seen it, do check it out so you can be a part of the conversation. Hate it or love it. On Letterboxd, I gave it.
I saw it. You gave it 2 stars.
Ouch!
I gave it 2.5 stars.
Yeah. How many stars did Wife Dork give it?
She gave it 3 stars.
She gave it 3 stars.
She liked it.
I'm very interested to talk about it.
It's unfortunate that her migraine has pulled her out of this conversation because I think she would be the big defender.
I think that's an after effect of the movie. So maybe she might deduce a star because it gave her a migraine.
Her review at the end of that film was, it was cute.
It was cute. I love it. All right, and you can follow her at Sidewalk Siren on Twitter and Instagram. Brian William Young is the Turtle Dork on Twitter, the Turtle Dork 1 on Instagram, and at Brian William Young on Facebook. And Mouth Dork is at Mouth Dork on all social medias, except for Tinder. He's not on there anymore. He's taken. He's mine. And I'm Darren Smith, the Disco Dork, on all social medias. That's going to do it for us. Thank you all for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week. Be on the lookout for our Fistful of Fall anticipation. Get your fistfuls ready so you can shoot them at us. We are done with the summer months. Now it's the back half of 2017. What movies are we looking forward to the most? Stay tuned to find out. Also, Film Club coming up in a few weeks, not months, maybe months, with our Lock, Stock.
Don't curse us.
Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. We have the Monster Squad reunion at Winchester. That's going to be awesome. And Homework
That's
Cast.
today.
Oh, yeah.
We're there right now,
We're
this
there
second.
watching it. You are not sorry. And Homework Cast is Domino, Tony Scott's masterpiece. Let Brad tell it. Yeah. That's going to do it for us. Thank you all for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week. And until next time.